Before I introduce my guest, I would like to just give you some background information regarding his background and what he does to help people with their mindset. Lee Roebeck is an abundance coach and one of South Africa's best trained speakers. He traveled to Boston in the United States to receive his training at the Harvard of Professional Speaking Schools, the Bill Gove Speech Workshop. Lee helps entrepreneurs clear money blocks and attract clients easily. He works with entrepreneurs from all over the world, and these business people are experiencing quantum leaps in their results because of the idea he teaches. And because of his background from the Harvard Professional Speaking School in working with Bob Proctor and Michael Beckwith, he applied all his wealth of information in while he was undergoing a very horrific situation. So it's with pleasure that I introduce Lee Roebeck to you. Hi, welcome to Caregiver Cast. My name is Mary Elaine Petrucci, your host. My speaker today is Lee Roebeck, and he went through a terrible experience a few years ago, and I wanted him to explain that, or just tell you the story of that horrible experience, and to begin to understand some of the strategies and tips that he used can be also used in your caregiving experience. So Lee, welcome to the Caregiver Cast.
Mary, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. So the story that you alluded to, the tough experience, happened on the 13th of January, 2019. Now, I was carjacked on a Sunday afternoon here in Johannesburg, South Africa. And, carjacking or crime is very prevalent here in South Africa. So anyway, it was about 2:15 on a Sunday afternoon. It happened at a shopping center close to where I stay. And I pulled into the parking lot of the shopping center. And all the stores were closed, but I pulled up in front of the furniture store. I had gotten out and I was window shopping. I was looking through the windows. I was looking at these dining tables. And the next minute, this gray Volkswagen Golf pulls into the parking lot with blue lights on the dashboard. So I obviously thought it was an unmarked police vehicle, but instantly my gut told me something's not right here. So anyway, these guys pulled into the parking lot. They rolled down the passenger side window, and the driver said to me through the window, he said, we just got a call that someone's trying to break into one of the stores here. And the next minute, the passenger in front and the passenger behind the driver both jump out with firearms in their hands, one coming to me from the left front and one from the right-hand side. So anyway, the guy from the left front comes up to me and he says, he starts tapping my pockets and he says, "Where's your car keys?" And I show him, it's here in my right pocket. So anyway, they took my key out, and these guys then proceeded to bundle me into the trunk, into the boot of my car. Now, I was driving a little Volkswagen Polo that Sunday afternoon, and I'm 6.5 foot tall, so I'm a big guy. And they literally put me into the boot of that car. Now, to be honest with you, Mary, to be honest with you, the first 10 minutes was really tough.
Sounds horrifying.
Just to calm myself, or just to, recalibrate or take control of my thinking again. The first 10 minutes was really tough. But eventually, after 10 minutes, they transferred me into the boot or the trunk of their car. And at least there was a bit more leg room in there. But what started happening in the trunk of their car, I'm a mindset coach. I'm an abundance coach. I've been working with a man by the name of Bob Proctor from Canada since December 2016. So being a mindset coach, I've obviously got to be a product of the product. I've got to internalize these ideas. You can't give anything you don't have. And what started happening in the trunk of that car is these stories started playing on the screen of my mind that were really helpful. And this is what I want to share to your caregivers, to your listeners, in the hope that it's tools or strategies and that they can implement to help them if you're faced with a tough situation. So the first thing that played in my mind in the trunk of that car was, I run a 6-month coaching program called Thinking into Results. And lesson 9 in our program is a lesson on attitude. And in the attitude lesson, the video of that lesson, my mentor, the legendary Bob Proctor, he talks about a man by the name of Viktor Frankl. And Viktor Frankl was a Viennese psychiatrist who spent the war years in a Nazi concentration camp. He spent years in Auschwitz. And Viktor Frankl said, in the worst circumstances, you can search for meaning, or you can try and find meaning to life. Now, I want you to just think about that for a moment, Mary and your listeners. We know what happened in those concentration camps. This man, Viktor Frankl, seen his whole family murdered there. He lost his wife there. He had a wedding ring, and he called it the last vestige of his known identity. And when they removed his wedding ring, he said in that moment, he realized that they could take everything away from him except the last of human freedoms, which he said was his ability to think. And he said, regardless of the intellectual and the physical abuse they subjected him to, he could still choose to hold a positive picture on the screen of his mind.
Now, how was he able to do that under such horrific conditions?
But nobody can cause you to think anything you don't want to think.
That's a great point.
Nobody can cause you. You allow it. You allow people to, because think of it, you can be in the toughest situation, and this is a story I'm going to tell you now, but you can close your eyes and you can go to a different mind space.
See, that's really remarkable. And I think that's so critical to caregiving, because sometimes we may be taking care of someone who we don't have a really good relationship with. So to have a different mindset or attitude is extremely critical.
So the thing is, you can't maybe necessarily control your situation. It's not an enjoyable situation. You can't control the outside, but you can control your attitude.
That's a great point.
No, you can control your.
Yes.
So this story plays in my mind, lying in the trunk, and I think to myself, Lee, you're in a tough spot here, like a really tough spot. But relative to what that man went through, this is probably a walk in the park. And that was helpful. That was something that came up earlier that was helpful. The second thing that came to mind, and if you're sitting and listening to this, and you need an attitude adjustment, I want you to listen to this next thing that came to mind. There's a speaker, and I want you to write it down. If you've got a pen and paper, I want you to write it down. There's a speaker from the West Coast of America, from California, a speaker by the name of Michael Bernard Beckwith. And Beckwith has a 3-step approach to anything negative that you may be going through. Now, these were the 3 steps that played in my mind in that car. Now, step number 1, it is what it is, accept it. It's either going to control you or you're going to control it, at least from a mental perspective. I mean, for armed guys, what was I going to do? Very early on, I gave it over to the universe and I said, Dad, you running the show here, whether I make it out of this dead or alive, I accept the outcome because you're in control. Step number 2 in his approach is harvest the good. There's good in everything, if you're looking for it, you're going to find it. Now you might say, gosh, Lee, what was the good in that situation? Because I was looking for it, I found it. My 4-year-old son, Zach, was with me that weekend, and he could so easily have been with me at 2:15 on that Sunday afternoon. Thank goodness he was at home, he was safe. My sister was supposed to meet me there to look at these dining tables. She was supposed to go with me.
Mm-hmm.
Thank goodness she didn't make it, and she was also at home, and she was safe. So that was something immediately I could celebrate. Step number 3 in Beckwith's approach is forgive all the rest. Forgive means to let go of, completely abandon. Just let any thoughts or ideas or negative feelings, don't stew in it. Maybe acknowledge it, but let it go. Let it go. All the great religions, all philosophies of success, complete philosophies of success will tell us things like you have to give to receive. You have to forgive to take yourself to the next level. You have to. It's critical. Forgiveness is not for the other person. It's for you. Now, because these 3 steps played in my mind, lying in the boot of that car, Mary, I could start praying for these guys. I prayed that for their parents, I prayed for their kids, even though there was a possibility they were going to take me away from my boy. I prayed that they'd find a way to make it out of that sort of lifestyle, to make a meaningful difference in the world. Now, I'm not telling you this to impress you, but rather to impress upon you that regardless of what's happening on the outside, you can still control your thinking, regardless of what challenge, what situation you find yourself in. Because if you're being controlled intellectually or on a thinking level and emotionally from the outside world, then you're a plaything for that person, that condition or circle. You're a plaything. So,
great example. Yes, great. That's a golden nugget right there. Thank you.
Now, eventually they let me go 3 hours later. Behind one of the big hospitals here in Johannesburg, a hospital called Baragwanath Hospital. It's actually in a township called Soweto. Some of you might be familiar with it. It's actually the township where Nelson Mandela lived. And they let me go there, and I phoned a family member to come and fetch me, Keenan. And when he got there, he said to me, he said, I can't believe how calm you are. Now, this next thing I'm going to share with you is probably the reason I was as calm as he had seen. I was part of a group of about 25 mindset coaches and speakers from all around the world. We met on a Zoom call every day, and we had a 90-day challenge. We were rewriting a chapter called Serenity from a little book, As a Man Thinketh, by James Allen. Now, it's just a 1.5-page chapter. It takes about 20 minutes to write it. We had a 90-day challenge. You'd write it every single day. If you miss a day, you got to start at day 1 again. I joined them on the 24th of October, 2018. So by the 13th of January, 2019, when this incident had happened, I had been internalizing calmness, self-control, equanimity, this inner strength on my subconscious mind for 79 days. And that was probably the reason I was as calm as I was.
Oh my goodness. What a transformation for you.
Now, those 3 tools literally had me spiraling up in the trunk of those cars from a mental perspective. Now, imagine I never had those mental tools, Mary. I'd have been spiraling down, and I'd have jumped out at the back of that hospital, an absolute emotional wreck. Does mindset coaching work? There's no doubt in my mind that proper elite level mindset coaching definitely does work. It's no rah-rah motivation. We get you up today and you're down tomorrow. Proper elite level mindset coaching does work. Now, why am I sharing the story with your listeners? Or with you even for that matter, Mary? I think it's because right now there's a lot of negativity going on, around the world with the pandemic and, businesses being affected, people losing loved ones, fears or scares around health. There's a lot of negativity. I mean, a lot happening around the world. And regardless of what's happening outside of you, whatever situation you might be faced with, challenge, maybe even in your caregiving situation, regardless of what's happening outside of you, just like Viktor Frankl, you can still choose to hold a positive picture on the screen of your mind. Now, just to bring that story of mine full circle, I'd set a goal a couple of years before to speak on an international stage. Nothing at the time when I set the goal, nothing qualified me for it. I was in an IT corporate career, but I set the goal. I followed what Bob said, and I really dove into the teachings. And this very worst thing, this carjacking, the very worst thing that could have happened to me turned out to be the best thing that could have happened to me, because it presented me with the opportunity to speak at Bob Proctor's Matrix seminar in Toronto at the Hilton to 110 business owners from all around the world and tell the story, and literally the realization of this goal that I had had for years. So it was a tough experience, but it actually turned out to be a blessing. Napoleon Hill, in his wonderful book, Think and Grow Rich, he says that any challenge, any adversity, any setback brings with it the seed of an equal or greater benefit. People are so focused and locked in on what's wrong, who done wrong to them, this bad situation. And if you're locked into that, guess what? You're going to get more of it because you tuned into the negative. But you can flip it and you can start looking for the good in the situation. You can start harvesting the good. I mean, even the Chinese, they write the word crisis using 2 brush strokes. So a crisis, if you find yourself in a chaotic situation with your caregiving, the crisis, these 2 brush strokes that the Chinese use, one stands for danger and the other for opportunity. And we've got to understand that the bigger the challenge, the bigger the negative situation, when we work our way to the other side, the win is just so much bigger.
And how do we get to that? That's really profound. How do people get to that point, Lee? That experience, thank you so much for sharing that experience. It seems like it was very terrifying, but because you were learning these skills from Bob Proctor and Michael Beckwith, that calmed you down enough to handle all of that stress and overwhelm. How do people get ready for that? I mean, especially if they're, caring for their parent, working full time, and, raising their family still. So can you help us out with that, please?
The simple answer is they've got to work on their mindset. They've got to form the habit of working on their mindset, because think of it. People get up, they go to jobs. People deal with relationships, some challenging, some good, your social life, everything happening around you. And the cause of all of that is your mind. Whether it's going to play out in a good way or in a bad way, the cause of everything, if you're a great salesman, it's because that's programmed into your mind. If you are struggling in your relationships, the start and the finish of the cause is with you. So the thing is, hardly anybody focuses on the cause of the results, which is the mindset. And we want to form the habit, like when you wake up in the morning, Mary, you don't have to think about brushing your teeth. It's something you do automatically. Or you don't have to think about showering or, getting dressed. It's something most of us do automatically every day. And we want to form, just like we do with brushing our teeth, we want to form the habit of setting aside a half an hour every day to work on edifying, upgrading our mindset. So how do people do it? One of your listeners that are struggling, you've got to spend time working on your mindset every day. That's the only way. And, that's what I help people with. I hold people's hands over 6 months, sometimes even longer. And I literally help them and I point them in the right direction. I mentor and guide them on how to incorporate these sort of ideas and take them from a place of ill health, dissatisfaction or being unhappy and being broke. And I literally move them using Bob Proctor's system, which he developed over 60 years, to a place of happiness, health, and wealth. And I can honestly say, after experiencing it myself, all of that, your happiness, whether you're happy or not, your health or your wealth, all starts in your mind. And here's the beautiful truth. You have control over that. That's not to say people exercise that, but you do have 100% control. I mean, that's where a person is truly born free. All of the great leaders of the past, they've disagreed on virtually everything, Mary, but they've all agreed that we become what we think about. People are not thinking. That might sound like a ludicrous statement, but using these 5 senses that are plugged into your conscious mind, we can see, hear, smell, taste, and touch. And allowing that to cause your thinking, that's not thinking. Just like Viktor Frankl, you can switch this off and choose to hold a positive picture on the screen of your mind. That controls your emotional state. Does this make sense?
Yes, it's very profound. So how do people do this? Do they meditate? Do they read inspirational quotes? Where would the starting point be for caregivers so that they can get out of all this stress and overwhelm and exhaustion? Where do they start?
So look, meditation is always a great thing. I mean, that helps with calmness. I'm a big advocate of meditation. That just moves you into a very calm, relaxed state. Inspirational books are great, but in our industry, in the work we do, we joke about it. We call it shelf help. Because a lot of people, they read a ton of books, Mary, but they pile it all up here in the conscious thinking mind. And 96 to 98% of our results, our perceptions and our behaviors come from the subconscious paradigm, from the programming deep in your subconscious. And so people gather information here, but the results on the outside doesn't change. You've got to internalize and incorporate it into your paradigm. Now, here's the quickest way I know how to do it. Is you need to get involved in some elite level mindset coaching program combined with professional coaching over a reasonable period of time. So that would be, I know it was a bit of a long-winded answer, but that would be the answer to that, Mary.
No, I appreciate that. I know mindset takes time. First of all, you have to, like you said, Viktor Frankl said, you have to change your mindset. So it doesn't happen overnight because you have to undo all of that subconscious programming that you have had with the person you're caring for potentially, and or from all of the experiences that you've had throughout your life. So it's reassuring that that caregivers can make that change in their mindset. However, they have to invest in themselves to get a mindset coach to help them with their journey, because it is really difficult to do it on your own.
It is. I would agree that it is difficult to do it on your own. But think of this. If you're looking after a loved one or a parent or somebody that you've had a challenging life with, if you let in what they did 20, 30 years ago affect you now, then you're living in reverse. You living from the past. Whereas you got to let that go. You have to let that go. And, you know, that baggage is so heavy. It moves you into such a negative state. And, you know, if you're in a negative feeling or a negative vibration, negative state, what are you attracting into your life? You're only going to attract the bad.
Oh, that's a really good point. And nothing changes. You still repeat that pattern over and over again, and it gets you nowhere.
Exactly. I mean, and once again, I think I said this earlier, you can control how you think or what you're thinking about. You've got 100% control over it. Nobody can cause you to think anything you don't want to think. And, you know, if a caregiver has hurt you in the past, oh, not a caregiver, sorry, somebody you're caring for has hurt you in the past, then you gotta let it go. Otherwise you're forever going to be imprisoned.
Wow, that is so profound. How do we get out of that prison and forgive that person who has hurt us so terribly?
Once again, mindset, get in the right direction, the right, you know, people to shine the light to help. I mean, Mary, all great religions, all philosophies of success, they all talk about this. Just do a little bit. You can do a little bit of research. They all talk about forgiveness. It's like this, you know, we live in a lawful universe. There are certain laws that govern everything. So if you jump off the top of a building, you're always going to go down. You're never going to go up.
Great point.
If you plant a carrot seed in the ground, 72 days later, you'll have a full-grown carrot. There's laws that govern everything that happens around us, right? Water always flows downhill. It never flows uphill by the law of gravity, right?
Right.
And, you know, just like giving opens the door to receive much more. That's a universal law. Forgiveness is a law. You need to align yourself with that law, because the thing is, it's perfect in that if you're holding on to unforgiveness or bitterness, it moves you into a negative state. And that's what's going to come into your experience. Whereas if you forgive, as these great religions tell us, as you forgive, you move yourself into a higher frequency or into a higher awareness, a higher state. And I don't know about you, Mary, but I don't want to be a prisoner. And would you agree with that?
Oh, definitely. I that analogy is just so incredible. Yeah, I don't want to live in a prison, and I don't want caregivers to live in a prison either. It's just like with your experience, that horrific experience that you had, you still found a way to not only forgive, but to pray for the people that are harming you and their families, which seems really counterintuitive. And I really want you to explore that a little bit more.
But here's the thing. Here's the thing, right? Everything you wish for someone else, you're wishing for yourself.
Oh boy. Wow.
We all connected, Mary. We all connected. We're from the same stock. Some people are just operating with the wrong ideas and doing the wrong things, but we all connected. Whatever you wish for somebody else, you're wishing for yourself.
Wow, that's another profound golden nugget. Thank you. So if we're thinking negatively about the person that we're caring for because they've hurt us in the past, we're not going to have a good caregiving experience, because you haven't.
And you're living in reverse.
Wow. I don't think anybody wants to live in reverse, although I think I have in the past. And it's not pleasant, because you keep going through the same experiences all over again.
It's just amazing how strong the mind is, and when you learn how to control it, Mary. And once again, for probably the third time, you have control over it. You have 100% control over it. Yeah. I have a gift.
Go
You're
ahead.
going to say something? No, you're going to say something?
No, I really appreciate you bringing that point up again. We do have 100% of control over our mind. We would like to think that we don't, and that we blame others for what happens to us, when in fact, it's what we're doing to ourselves.
It's two options. You can either react or you can respond. So let's say you get up in the morning and you spill some coffee on your blouse or on your jacket. Most people, that would let the rest of the day go downhill, or somebody cuts you off in traffic. They reacting to that person, condition, or circumstance. But there's a space in between the incident, even if it's a small space between the incident and your action, or how what comes thereafter. And in that space, you can choose to respond. So, instead of getting angry at an inconsiderate driver, why not laugh it off? You're not going to change the way he thinks or the way he drives. I mean, why would you want to take your day downhill? It's almost like having this garbage truck dumping its garbage on you. So I think we should rather thoughtfully respond rather than react.
Brilliant. So besides what you just mentioned, you want to respond, not react, and you want to realize that you have 100% of control over what you're thinking. Are there other 3 takeaways caregivers should really consider while they're caregiving?
So I think that's pretty much wrapped up in most of what we've shared already, Mary.
Okay.
And if there's anything, I'd say invest in your mind, control your attitude, use those 3 steps by Beckwith. And it was really helpful to me, and I hope it will be helpful to your listeners. I hope if you're listening to this, I hope it would be helpful to you. Maybe review this podcast, go over it again and listen to all these ideas that were shared and take notes. I promise you there's absolute gold in it. But Mary, in ending, I'd like to offer a gift, a free gift to your listeners, to whoever's listening right now.
Thank you.
Because that Serenity chapter by James Allen had such a profound impact on me, I went into a studio and I had it professionally recorded, some beautiful background music added to it, this chapter. And it's a Serenity meditation audio that I am particularly proud of, and I think will really help your caregivers that are struggling. The suggestion is that you use this Serenity meditation audio for 30 days. You listen to it once a day for 30 days to move yourself to a place of calmness and composure and, there's just internal control. And your listeners can download it at the following link. So it's https:// I'll spell it phonetically. It's Bravo India Tango.Lima Yankee. So that's bit.ly/Serenity-audio. And I don't know if are you able to put the link on the podcast, yes, for your listeners?
I'll find a way to do that, because I have listened to that meditation, and it's a wonderful way to get into that serenity. And I love the way you present it. And I think the listeners will really benefit from that serenity passage that you narrate, because it's just the way you read it and put the emotion in it really helps. It helped not only me, but I can see it helping caregivers start switching, making that switch in their mindset and doing it for 30 days. So thank you so much for that free offer.
My pleasure. My pleasure. I hope your listeners get a wonderful benefit from it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for talking today. I think everything caregivers can learn from your experience and the golden nuggets that you shared throughout the interview will benefit them immensely. So thank you so much.
My pleasure, Mary. Thanks again for having me.